Some kids are just born a step behind, my sister smirked, glancing at my son. My son's eyes dropped to his plate. I said calmly, behind? Like how you're 36, unemployed and raising your kids in my guest room. Her face went pale. Mom hissed, this isn't the time. I said, it's exactly the time. Some kids are just born a step behind. That's what my sister said. At my table. About my son. With a smirk on her face like she thought she was being clever. Like insulting a 14-year-old in front of his entire family made her sharp instead of pathetic. Liam had just been talking about the robotics program he got into. He was excited. He rarely talks that much around other people, especially not adults, but this meant something to him. He was proud. And for a second I was just glad he was opening up. Then Kelsey dropped that comment. Liam looked down at his plate. Quiet. Like someone had flipped a switch in him. I stared at her across the table. She wasn't even looking at him anymore. She was already scooping more mashed potatoes like she hadn't just humiliated a teenager who, up until that moment, had been having a good day. Behind? I said. Like how you're 36, unemployed and raising your kids in my guest room. Everything stopped. Even the kids. Forks hovered mid-air. My husband, Matt, looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should step in or let me handle it. He knew better. Kelsey's face drained. She opened her mouth but nothing came out. My mom said my name. Oh. Warning. Like she still had some kind of authority in this house. I kept my eyes on Kelsey. It's exactly the time. She tried to laugh it off at first. Said I was overreacting. Said she was just kidding. She even tried to throw in that she loved Liam and was just teasing. I didn't let up. I asked her what part was funny. Was it his speech delay when he was 6? Was it the IEP meetings I sat through for years? Was it the time he got pulled out of math class every Tuesday and Thursday because he processed information differently? Was that the joke, Kelsey? I wasn't yelling. I didn't have to. You don't get to come into my house, eat my food, sleep under my roof for free for 6 months, and then insult my kid at my dinner table. She was quiet. Her kids were staring at her, waiting for her to say something. Mine wouldn't even look up. Mom tried to step in again but I cut her off. Don't. Just don't. There was a long silence. And for a second I thought maybe that would be it. Maybe she'd just shrink back and finally feel what it was like to be small. But no. Kelsey has never been able to shut up when she should. She said I was just jealous because she gets to be a stay-at-home mom, and I work all the time. Said Liam was weird because I put too much pressure on him. I looked at her and said, you're not a stay-at-home mom. You're a 36-year-old whose boyfriend kicked her out, who had nowhere to go and who begged me for a place to stay. You don't get to act like this was a choice. And you don't get to trash my kid just because he's going places yours won't. And right then I could tell. Something changed. Not just in her face but in the room. My dad stood up and walked out of the dining room without saying anything. My mom didn't defend her again. Even Matt, who usually tries to play peacemaker, didn't say a word. Kelsey sat there red-faced, suddenly quiet. Liam still hadn't looked up. I got up, walked over and told him to come with me. We left our own dinner table and went upstairs, leaving the mess behind. I wasn't finished with her. But that was the beginning. That night, after everyone left or went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen with a glass of wine and the sound of the dishwasher humming like it was trying to calm the tension still hanging in the air. Liam had gone to his room right after dinner. No complaining. No questions. Just silence. I checked on him once. He was reading. I didn't push. He'd talk when he was ready. I wasn't mad that Kelsey insulted him. I was mad because it wasn't the first time. She did this kind of thing constantly, slipping little jabs into conversations and pretending they were jokes. When he was younger he didn't catch them. But now he was old enough to know. And still she never saw anything wrong with it. What made it worse was that my parents always brushed it off. Said she was just stressed, or that's how she jokes, or she doesn't mean it. She never had to deal with the consequences. Someone always cleaned up after her. Usually me. But not anymore. The next morning she tried to act like nothing had happened. She made pancakes for her boys using my ingredients, didn't ask, left the kitchen looking like a storm had hit it. She avoided eye contact, barely mumbled a good morning, and made a show of how busy she was trying to keep her kids entertained. She didn't say a word to Liam. I dropped mine off at school, came back and pulled Matt aside. I'm done. She's out. He looked at me, surprised for half a second, then nodded. Do it. I gave her until the end of the week. I didn't ask if she had anywhere else to go. That was her problem. I reminded her she had a mother and father just as capable of offering a couch. Though I had a feeling she wouldn't be welcome there after Thanksgiving. She tried to guilt me at first. Said her kids needed stability. Said I was making her homeless. I said she could try being stable herself, maybe get a job instead of sitting around all day watching TV and running up my utility bill. That was when it stopped being passive. That's when the insults turned real. She said I thought I was better than her. Said I always acted like some hero because I had a good job and a husband who didn't bail. Said Liam was just a nerdy kid with no social skills, who I kept trying to pretend was some kind of genius. I didn't raise my voice. I said, "You've had 6 months to get your life together. You didn't. That's on you." She stormed upstairs, slammed the door to the guest room and didn't come out for hours. But I wasn't waiting around. I started pulling receipts. Photos. Screenshots. Everything I'd ignored for years. Her texts making fun of people, her rants about coworkers when she used to work, the things she'd said about our parents behind their backs. I printed some. Saved others. I didn't know yet how I'd use them. But I was done playing nice. Because Kelsey didn't just insult my son. She built her entire life around tearing other people down to feel taller. She got away with it because no one ever bothered to remember. I was about to make sure no one forgot. And I knew exactly where to start. 2 days after Thanksgiving, Kelsey started acting sweet. She offered to do the dishes after dinner. Said thank you when I handed her something. Even tried to help Liam with his homework, which was laughable since she couldn't even spell geometry without autocorrect. It was all an act and not a convincing one. He thought she could flip the narrative. Be the bigger person. Win over my parents and Matt before I followed through on kicking her out. But I'd already put things in motion. See, Kelsey had this habit she always kept a Finsta. A fake Instagram account where she posted rants, complaints, half-nude selfies and passive-aggressive stories aimed at people she was too cowardly to confront. He blocked me years ago. But she forgot about my friend Hallie. Kelsey didn't even remember she followed her. And Hallie sent me everything. Screenshots of Kelsey mocking Liam's speech. One caption said, "My sister's kid talks like a malfunctioning robot. Should have named him Siri." Another one was a photo of the robotics flyer with the caption, "Elon Musk better watch out. Or not." There were worse ones. Things I won't repeat. But I printed them all. In color. Stapled them together. Bound them with a clip like a report. Then I invited my parents over. I told them I wanted to clear the air before Kelsey left. That we should all talk. Matt stayed quiet but he watched everything. Liam was at a friend's house. I made sure of that. Kelsey came down halfway through their visit already suspicious. I could see it in her eyes. My mom tried to smile like nothing was wrong. Then I slid the stack of printed screenshots onto the table. Kelsey froze. My dad picked them up. Started flipping through. At first, confusion. Then his face changed. I told them exactly what they were looking at. What she'd said about Liam. About them. About me. None of it was exaggerated. None of it was taken out of context. She tried to interrupt. I told her to wait. I pulled out the second folder. A printed list of job applications she'd pretended to fill out while staying with us. All blank. I'd found the saved drafts on the guest room computer. My old laptop. Every tab open to Indeed, none submitted. The timeline made it clear. She hadn't been job hunting. She'd been coasting. That's when the real meltdown began. He tried to spin it. Said I was stalking her. That I had nothing better to do than dig into her private stuff. That I was obsessed with making her look bad. But she didn't realize something. She didn't need help looking bad. She'd already done that all on her own. My mom said nothing. She just looked at her. Like she was seeing her for the first time. My dad was the one who spoke. He told her she had 3 days. Not just to get out of my house, but to come up with a plan. Because she wasn't coming to theirs either. Kelsey stared at him like he'd slapped her. He turned to my mom. Nothing. He turned to me. I didn't even blink. She walked out of the room, slammed the door again and screamed something about being betrayed by her whole family. I looked at my parents and said welcome to the club. But this wasn't the end. Because what Kelsey didn't know was that the worst part wasn't being kicked out. It was what was waiting for her after. Kelsey packed like someone who thought the universe would fix everything before the deadline. She dragged her feet, kept saying things like, "I'm working on it," or, "I've got a plan." But it was all smoke. She thought if she looked desperate enough, someone would cave. No one did. By the third day she was gone. Took her kids, the few bags she came with, and 2 throw pillows she didn't ask for. Left the guest room a mess. Crumbs in the carpet, crayon marks on the wall, and a half-eaten sandwich in the closet. She didn't say goodbye to Liam. Not a text. Not a note. After she left, it was quiet. A weird, stretched-out kind of quiet. Matt and I deep-cleaned the room. Liam helped without me even asking. None of us said anything while we worked, but I think we all felt the same thing. Relief. Then came the calls. She must have tried our parents first. But after they shut her down, she started reaching out to cousins, old friends, people she hadn't spoken to in years. Told them we kicked her out with no warning. Said I was jealous, vindictive, obsessed with being the golden child. What she didn't realize was that people weren't buying it anymore. Turns out, when you've burned enough bridges, nobody rushes to hold up the last one. 2 weeks after she left, I got a message from one of her old co-workers, Janelle. We'd met once at a barbecue Kelsey dragged me to back when she still had a job. Janelle said she'd seen the screenshots I shared privately with family. Said Kelsey had been the same way at work. Mocking people behind their backs, spreading rumors, pretending to be a leader when she was barely holding her own position. Then came the twist. Janelle said Kelsey had applied for a job at the same company she worked for now. And listed me as a reference. I almost laughed. I asked Janelle to do me a favor. Send me the email with the application. She did. Kelsey had lied on her resume. Claimed she'd been freelancing as a consultant for the last year. Said she was staying with her sister to help with a sick nephew. She didn't even spell my last name right. I forwarded the email to Kelsey. No message. Just the file highlighted in red. 3 minutes later she called. I didn't answer. Then the text came in. Reagan, come on. Why are you doing this? That's my career. You're destroying my life over one comment? But it wasn't one comment. It never was. It was a pattern. Years of tearing people down and expecting no pushback. Treating everyone like punching bags while crying victim the second someone stood up. I replied once. You don't get to fail upward anymore. You wanted to start over? Then start from the bottom like the rest of us did. She didn't text again. I didn't tell Liam any of this. He didn't need to know. He'd already been hurt enough. But one night, maybe a week later, he came into the kitchen while I was packing his lunch. He didn't say much, just leaned on the counter watching me. Then he said it. You didn't let her win. I looked at him and said no. I didn't. And I won't. For a while it seemed like that was it. Kelsey had burned her bridge with me, our parents, and most of the extended family. I figured she'd finally do what she always threatened to do. Move out of state, start over somewhere, spin a new story. But instead she went low. Really low. Started with a Facebook post. Just text. No names. Vague enough to avoid getting flagged, but pointed enough that anyone who knew us knew exactly who she meant. Funny how the ones who pretend to be the most put together are always the cruelest. Kicking out a struggling mother and her children right before Christmas. But hey, at least her autistic son will have a clean house to shut down in. It hit hard. Not because it hurt me, but because she used Liam, his challenges, his history, the part of his life he'd worked through so painfully, to get attention. To spin her story. To turn people against me with twisted half-truths and cheap pity. She didn't even care that she was exploiting the one person she'd hurt most. She just wanted someone to clap for her. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't have to. My phone started lighting up almost immediately. Friends, acquaintances, people I barely talked to anymore. Some asking if I was okay, some asking what really happened. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Serena. We went to high school together but hadn't spoken in over a decade. She told me she had something I needed to see. She'd been in a mom group with Kelsey. Same town, different circles. Apparently, Kelsey had been using that group to build her army, posting constant rants about her evil sister, spinning this sob story about being kicked out for being too honest, how I was jealous of her motherhood, how I couldn't handle raising a different kid, and took it out on her. But Serena had screenshots. And what Kelsey didn't know was that one of her earlier posts, weeks before Thanksgiving, had exposed everything. Read. Staying with my sis is like living in a Pinterest ad. She acts like she's got it all figured out, but she's hanging on by a thread. That kid never speaks unless it's about robots. It's honestly creepy. Can't wait to be out of here. There was months of playing victim. Then bragging behind closed doors about how she was just waiting to leave on her terms. I asked Serena if I could use the screenshots. He said yes. So I did something I wasn't planning to do. Posted. Not a rant. Not a meltdown. Just a simple message with the screenshots attached. Truth doesn't need decoration. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I didn't tag her. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. People connected the dots fast. Comments started pouring in. Some from people who'd known Kelsey, some from people who'd clearly been watching this unfold in silence. Old friends, former coworkers, even a neighbor she stiffed on a babysitting bill. The final crack came from someone I didn't expect. My mom. He commented on my post. I believed her too many times. Never again. Kelsey must have seen it. She deleted her Facebook within an hour. And just like that, the campaign ended. Not with a fight, but with silence. So I knew Kelsey. And I knew she wasn't done. She'd disappear for a while. But she was planning something. And I was ready for it. Kelsey vanished for about 6 weeks. No social media. No texts. No updates from family. Nothing. I assumed she'd either found someone else to take her in or was couch hopping again. Either way, the quiet was a gift. But just after New Year's, she made one last move. She tried to go through Liam's school. I got an email from the assistant principal one morning. Said a relative had called asking about Liam's accommodations. Asking what exactly was being done for him and whether someone was actually monitoring his behavior, because she was concerned for the other students. She used her name. Didn't even try to hide it. I sat there staring at my screen, stunned. Not just because she crossed the line, but because she was so desperate, so bitter that she tried to make it look like my son was some kind of threat. Like she could hurt me by going after his progress. What she didn't realize is I document everything. I called the school, explained the situation, and they immediately flagged her number. I sent them a copy of the custody paperwork stating I'm Liam's sole guardian. Then I forwarded the same file of screenshots I'd shared with my parents. The school counselor called me personally to say how sorry she was and that they'd already locked Liam's file from all outside inquiries. But I didn't stop there. I sent a copy to my parents, to let them know what she'd done. My dad called first. He said, "She's done." Then my mom texted, "You have our full support. Whatever you decide next." So I decided. I reached out to CPS. I told them everything. Not as a revenge move, but because I was genuinely concerned. Kelsey had no job, no permanent address, and a documented history of emotionally unstable behavior. She dragged her kids from place to place, used them as props in her sob stories, and now tried to weaponize mine. They opened a case. Quietly. No fanfare. No warnings. I didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. Then I got a message. From her. Not a voice note. Not a rant. Just a text. I lost them. You happy now? And I stared at it for a long time. Because I wasn't. Not really. I wasn't happy that her kids had to go through that. I wasn't happy that it had come to this. But I was at peace. Because it wasn't about being happy. It was about finally being done. With her cruelty. With her manipulation. With the way she chipped at everyone, thinking nobody would ever hit back. The last thing I sent her was short. They deserved better. So did we. And I blocked her. Liam never asked about her again. We moved on. He kept thriving. I kept showing up. Not for revenge. Not for applause. Just for him. And sometimes that's the best revenge there is. Peace she can't touch and a kid she'll never break.